The young American and British troops who very bravely put their lives on the line for the purpose of serving their countries have to be applauded and deserve accolades for their bravery. It is not easy to go into vast unknown territory and fight for your country, but a question remains to be answered, and every single US and British troop should be asking themselves, what am I fighting for? Your governments will tell you it is for the security of your country, for freedom, and to preserve democracy. These ideas are obscure, unrealistic, superficial, and fabricated. Over the last 10 years, Islam has been portrayed as your enemy by the biased media and considered a threat to the West. But the truth of the matter is, there is no threat. Strong evidence leads to the fact that most of the major mishaps since 9/11 have been designed and executed for the advantage of the tyrants in charge of Western governments. To cut to the chase, the wars you have been bravely fighting for in Iraq and Afghanistan have been for the advantage of a few power-hungry, greedy people high up in the Western hierarchy. These wars have been fought for money, oil, and power, and it's a real shame that none of you brave soldiers will ever see any of it. You brave men must consider a few things next time you're about to pull that trigger. The person you're about to kill, is his life worth more than the materialistic interests of your leaders? Whether you like it or not, it is the truth. The fight isn't for your country. It's so a few men can sell some oil and get rich, and they are willing to sacrifice your life for their desires. Brave soldiers, you must use your head and be not under the influence of a lying media. Islam is not the enemy. Muslims do not want war. Muslims desire peace. On a few rare occasions when Muslims do retaliate, do not be taken by the exaggerated stories that the news tells you about extremist Islam, but instead ask yourself this: why is a Western offensive labeled a fight for freedom and a Muslim retaliation labeled terrorism? If your neighbor one day comes into your home and beats you to the ground and robs you, will you sit back and do nothing? Because this is precisely what's happening when you invade these helpless countries and rob them of their freedom, an act which is asked of you for reasons based on lies. Troops, it is time to open your minds and think for yourself on what's really going on. Your government doesn't care about you. Whilst you're bravely fighting in a war, they are cutting benefits for the public in your countries. Think of your families. If you are killed in action, it will be difficult for your wife and child to survive with the cuts in benefits. Don't die for a phony war. Return home to your families. Love your wives, children, and mothers. If you put down your arms, Muslims will not feel the need to defend themselves. The global conflicts will subside, and the world will be a better place. It's time for you to realize you are not the saviors. You have been acting like barbaric oppressors, and Islam is your victim. And all for what? Not for freedom, not for national security. These threats are fabricated to bend your will and oppress any personal opinions you may have, but instead for the greed and desire for money, oil, and a non-existent threat which has been given the form of Islam. Instead then, it may be more effective to start a battle with your own governments to get them to focus on getting the UK and US back on track, to stop the cuts, the recession, and everything else that's gone wrong back home in your respective countries. Fight for a better life. Fight for your families. Fight for your future generations and their prosperity. Your leaders are taking you for advantage, and they are taking your nations backwards through the expensive and barbaric wars for their personal gains. Stop them while you can. That's a war worth fighting for.